at its core, The Frontrunner is about the 3 weeks in which Gary Hart went from the next president of the United States to dropping out of the race. But on a larger level, The Frontrunner is a movie about our questions about what we think is relevant. We're all human beings. We're all going to make mistakes. And we have to ask ourselves, what flaws do we want in our leaders? What flaws are we willing to put up with? And in 1987, there was a moment where a very qualified candidate made some serious mistakes, and I don't think we had the time to make the right decisions. People didn't have the right information. People were acting quickly. You had journalists at various different newspapers trying to do the right thing, but not always knowing what the right thing was. And we're at a moment in which a current affair has just gone on the air. Satellite trucks are now pervasive. CNN is giving satellite phones to all their correspondents. You have a generation of journalists who have grown up watching Woodward and Bernstein become celebrities, played by Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman. And Gary Hart entered a moment that he could have never seen coming. The ground shifted not only under his feet, but all of our feet. And now with 30 years of perspective, it's interesting to look back and think about what road that put us on. Hugh Jackman has a reputation for being one of the hardest working actors in the business. I don't think I was prepared for how hard he actually works. He said something to me in prep at one point. He said, "I never want to feel as though I could have done more." And that is the truest thing about Hugh Jackman. There was a day on set, there was this 2-inch notebook or 3-inch notebook, and I said, "What is that?" And he goes, "Oh, it's all on Gary Hart." And I start, flipping through, and it was this research. Someone had created a whole research notebook of the whole life of Gary Hart. And I said, "That's insane. Are you going to read that whole thing?" He said, "That's book 1 of 5. There was this much research. He had the entire life. Our wardrobe department, our production design department learned about Gary Hart through Hugh Jackman. He found photos, he found videos, he found stories we didn't know. Hugh Jackman memorized speeches that were not in the movie. We would have moments where I was like, "Oh, we needed to shoot something." I was like, "Oh, it'd be great if we did something from this speech." And he goes, "Oh yeah, I know that speech." And you could just roll right into it. I think Hugh Jackman and I found each other kind of at the perfect moment where we had the same things on our mind. We both heard this story and both immediately reacted to the interplay of how Gary Hart's story reflected on 2018. It gave us a seed into perhaps how we got here, a thread that you could pull on and almost travel 30 years. JK, whether he's being Juno's father or a maniac drum professor or the head of the Hart campaign, he's always being thoughtful, always smart, always funny, can turn on a dime. He's an actor who always understands exactly what he's saying and comes from, J.K. Simmons comes from a lineage of workmanlike acting who feel like it is his job to make the scene work. And you kind of know that as an audience as you watch him. That he's a team player, he's helping all the actors around him. And one thing that I've really loved watching over the last dozen years is the admiration grow around J.K. Simmons, both as we walk down the street, but also on set. When I watch him command this group of younger actors who admire him the way that that campaign team really admired Dixon. I prefer movies that ask questions than give answers. And The Frontrunner ends on a question. What do you want to look at? We don't go behind the door a lot in this movie. We generally show you rooms that were public, that had lots of people in them. But for the first time in the closing scene, we really go into a room with just two people, a private room, and we give the audience two things to look at. A very relevant and compelling speech that's happening on television by Gary Hart, where he talks about the future, and a private moment between a husband and a wife who have just gone through the worst week a marriage could ever imagine. And they're trying to decide their future. And I'm asking you as the audience, what do you want to look at? Where do your eyes go? What do you pay attention to? A man in 1987 running for the presidency, the front runner, many points ahead of everybody, realized that he was being staked out at his home and went into his alleyway. And for a moment, the guy who was going to be the president of the United States was standing alone in the middle of the night in his alleyway with a group of journalists who were asking him questions about his private life. It's just unimaginable today. What makes this thriller unique is that it's true.